Pam, you want to change over the host?
Joe's going to be the host?
I was going to be the host, and then we'll start the recording.
Okay, Tiger's going to be the host?
Yeah.
Because we're going to have some presentations and
right.
Can you make Joe co-host?
And you're recording now, Tiger.
We'll do that. Yeah, I saw that because I just went to do it. Thank you, Pam. I'll make Joe co-host right now.
Okay. Let's get started. It is 9:01. I'll call the meeting to order. So the roll call, we have all the members present except for Penny Ration and
Amy.
Michael Chen and Amy
Right.
Murphy Carroll, and hopefully they'll join us a little bit late, but anyway. So I put the election officers back on the agenda. I think we have one person willing to be co-chairman, but we're still working on the other co-chairman. But I'd like to move this to a process of having someone else run the meeting. I'm not going to step away from this process entirely, but Mr. Walbert's willing to step forward as a co-chairman, and I wanted to see if we had a nomination for Bill.
I'll nominate Bill.
Okay, I'll second.
All right.
All those in favor, aye.
All right, so we have one co-chairman. You know,
there's no faster nomination than for someone else to do more with the work. Yeah.
No, actually, but the point is, this process is going to require two phases. The first phase is going to be more political than detailed in terms is are we going to build a new building or renovate, and if we're going to build a new building, where's it going to go? And Mr. Walbert knows how to steer a process through political shoals, and I think. But I would like to have a builder, if possible, for the other co-chairman, because we're going to get into a detailed process of building or renovating, So if ideally we'd have a builder, and so we'll still hold out for the possibility someone can do that. If not, one other member of this committee will have to step forward to help Bill. He doesn't want to be solo. And the other thing is, since Joe Zagorensky will be our staff support for the committee meetings, being secretary is not a heavy lift here, but we do need a secretary for the committee, and I would ask for nominations for secretary. And someone who's not here, you could even nominate so that they.
I just got a text from Penny. It says she wants to know if we're in the meeting. I'm going to say yes, and I'll talk to her and see what's wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, she's not in the waiting room. I just put Brian in the waiting room, but I don't see Penny waiting.
Let me call her right now.
Okay. We can resend her the link if need be.
Oh, she said she's having an internet issue. She's getting on right now.
Okay.
Do you want to, do I have a nomination for secretary? Since it's Amy's not here, we could nominate Amy.
Jim Bell.
No, I can't do it. I'm too many other commitments.
Again, Joe's going to do the minutes as a draft, and
okay, we'll take it from there. Sorry, next time if you're late next time, Jim, you could be it.
All right, well, let's pass on that if you're not ready to elect a secretary. Comments from the public. This is a public virtual meeting by Zoom, and therefore comments will be taken only by email. And since I am I wasn't until a few minutes ago the acting chair of this group, I will take comments. Tucker's not on, so I guess I will look for the email comment to my town email address. Simply my name, kevin.moynihan@newcanaan.ct.gov. If we receive comments by email, we will read them in the course of the meeting or before the end of the meeting. Good morning, Penny.
Good morning.
We just elected Mr. Walbert as a co-chairman, saying that we are looking for another co-chairman, hopefully a builder, but we'll let that process play
Excellent.
out. We also just asked for nominations for secretary. Since Joe Zagorensky will be the staff support for this committee, it won't be a heavy lift, but if that's what we accomplished so far. And I just mentioned that public comments would be received by email. That brings us to the approval of the minutes. Actually, Bill, do you want to take over as chairman now, co-chairman, for the rest of the meeting?
First, you have to unmute, Bill.
There we go. Thank you. But the questions will be coming in through your email, Kevin?
Yes.
Okay.
Not questions, comments.
Okay. Question. Okay. Well, the minutes, everyone has a copy of the minutes. Any corrections or comments?
I had no correct.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Here. Yeah.
So moved.
All right, Penny, second Jim. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, minutes approved. Now we're on to the architects. And Tiger, you said you had them on waiting in?
The first Brian Humes, yeah, I put he came right in, and then so I sent him back into the waiting room so we could chat first, and then I'll bring him in when we're ready. If you're ready.
Have they been given a sort of a time expectation?
They've been given 20 minutes.
Okay.
And then did we have time for question after that, Joe?
There's a small amount of time for questions, and then the next architect comes on.
How much time do we? How much time?
Can you tell us what you asked them to present during the 20 minutes? Just the
well, so what we did was we gave them Stuart's presentation that he had performed that shows some of the sites. They're not going to speak about anything site specific because we don't know. That's what we're going to get their input on, but we're going to look at big picture, what is best to do for site selection and concentration mostly on the existing site at this point.
Thanks.
Yeah, one of the key things is Stuart's been assuming we need 2.5 acres for a new building, and but that's Stuart's layman's guesstimate, and both architects, we'd like to pick their brains as to what the minimum requirement should be for the footprint for a new building.
And it'll be a general introduction to their firms too, because there's a lot of new players here.
Right. Most of you guys have met these guys, right? I have not, but most of you guys have.
Briefly throughout the last couple of years.
Okay.
I haven't met Brian Humes.
No, nor have I.
Yeah,
I've worked with Brian, and I've heard Castle Booze make presentations on other jobs.
Yep.
Yeah,
Castle was the architect for the high school project.
I might mention too, by way of background. So in the interim since last month, some of us visited Bethel, which is a new building designed by Brian Humes. And we visited Newtown, which is a building designed by Castle Booze. And both Brian Humes and Castle Booze are the two leading police department architects in the Northeast. They've done many buildings around Connecticut, Massachusetts, probably New Hampshire, and Rhode Island. So that I think we had already distributed, Joe, the package for each firms, but that they gave us 2 years ago when we asked them both to present.
We previously, Stuart had sent that out approximately a month ago now, so I could resend it out if anyone needs it.
Right, and
That'd be great, just for convenience.
Yeah, I spoke to Brian and Chuck Booze before this meeting, and I mentioned that we perhaps would like to pay them both to look at locations once we've determined what the committee wants to put forth as possible locations, and have them each give us their ideas as to what could be done at different locations. So this committee has to decide. We do have a budget already that was appropriated last year. So the question is, how much would we be willing to pay them to give us ideas about specific locations, and also ideas about possibly building a new building at the current site rather than renovating. The big decision this committee is going to have to make, based upon the architect's views on renovating, is it desirable to renovate that building, or should we build a new building either at the present site behind the current building, tear the current building down? There's lots of options for you to consider. So.
Right, I've been thinking a lot about that, Kevin, about engaging the architects to help us with siting, and I think it probably will be money well spent, but I think we should probably discuss that, after their presentations. Joe and Tiger will have some thoughts of that as well. I haven't talked to you guys about that, but I think when it comes down to helping us make our most important decision, right, which is what direction are we going to go in as far as location is concerned, not to have the benefit of professionals who done many of these before. It just seems silly, and the price tag in the grand scheme of what this project will cost is also incredibly minor. So I'd be in favor of doing something like that. But again, we can have that discussion after the presentations.
Yeah, and I don't think you need not make any decisions today. Obviously, this process is going to be a few more months but I think a key decision is renovate or build, and if it's build, what locations are available, and what process would we go through to decide which is the best location. So that's for the committee to decide, and ultimately to decide which architect, because they are the two leading architects for buildings, police buildings. That being said, where are we going next?
Well, I guess we're going to let Brian in and hear his presentation. Is that fair?
Fair enough.
Yep.
Okay, then I'll let him in now. Brian, are you there?
Hello.
There he is. Thanks for waiting, Brian.
Not a problem. Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's good
Bill,
to see some familiar faces.
Yeah, Bill Walbert, why don't you introduce our committee to Brian?
Brian, we're the building committee for the police station. My name is Bill Walbert. We haven't met. Nice to meet you, Brian. And on this Zoom call right now, we have members of our committee: Jim Bell, Paul Foley, Penny Rashid, Paul Tully, myself, Bill Walbert. Other members of the committee that are not currently on the call are Michael Chen and Amy Murphy Carroll. Also on the call are own Stuart Sawabini, who has done just an amazing job. Stuart, every time I look at the work you've done, I'm just incredibly grateful is what I am. The police chief, Leon, let's see, Joe is on. I think you know Joe, and Tiger, and John DiFrederico, the police captain, also deputy chief in charge of the police input to the project.
And also the first selectman who's ex officio.
Oh my goodness, yes. As well as I'm sure members of the press. I see Mike Dinan on there. I see Rich Townsend, town council member as well.
Thank you for the introduction, and thanks, Joe, for coordinating all of this. It seems like so far it's going well. It's good to see some familiar faces, Chief, and Jim. It's good to see Jim again. I have put together a quick presentation. I don't know if that's the format you want or you want a back and forth discussion, but I'd be happy to give you a quick presentation about a little bit about who we are. And
I think with Zoom, it's much better to go with the presentation. Well, we probably have some comments and questions at the end, but interaction is difficult.
Okay, so can I share my screen, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Okay, so now you're seeing a presentation, hopefully. This was put together just to give you an idea about who we are. I know that you have a choice to make about who you want to go with. This is who we are, and hopefully I'm going to give you an idea of why Jakunski Humes would be a good choice for your town and your committee. We are a small firm, but we all have large firm experience here. I was actually a principal at Castle Booze back from 93 to 96. I know the large firm experience, and I made a conscious effort in 96 to become a small firm. But still, I wanted to concentrate in police facility design. This is what I've been doing for over 30 years. It's something that at Jakunski Humes Architects, I have been doing for 25 years. It'll be 25 years in May that Al and I started the firm, and I've been doing police facility design from day one, 25 years ago. It's a picture of the recently completed Stanford Police Headquarters on the screen. What we do here is, with a very technical building, we produce very accurate and detailed drawings and documents. what you're getting with that is owner satisfaction. We can't go out and just say we want these projects. We have to do like we're doing right now and prove to you that we know what we're doing and we know how to do it. The Stanford facility in the upper left photo was our rendering. So this is what was brought to the voters. Before we even put a shovel in the ground, they saw the rendering, and then the bigger photo in the bottom right is the actual constructed facility. So what we show the public is what we're producing for the public. This project was completed with very low change orders, very high client satisfaction. Chief, I don't know if you had an opportunity to be down in Stanford since this has been opened, but they've been in here maybe 2 years. The other thing that's different about us is with a small firm, we have to tailor our projects to our staff. We don't take a shotgun approach. If we get a call from somebody and says, hey, Brian, we want you to do this project, we have to evaluate whether it's right for us. And we have no problems telling clients and prospective clients no. We've turned down projects because we don't feel it's the right fit, or we'll turn down projects if we don't have the staffing available. For this project, we have both. We have the expertise to do it. We have the staff available, and we're looking for more work right now. So this is right in our wheelhouse. It fits our model, and we have the time and the staffing to take this on at this point. So we adjust our workload to our staff, and this is a lot different than the larger firms. The larger firms are interested in volume, and once they get the volume, they'll figure out the staffing. We do it the opposite. We figure out our staffing, and then we go out and find the projects to input into that system. It's a completely different scenario than just taking on work, and then just trying to manage it as the work comes in. We manage it before the work even comes in. So we have the luxury of doing that where larger firms don't have the luxury to do that. We are staffing right now of 7. We're located in Berlin, Connecticut. And the way we run our projects is principal led. Because we have 7, I am involved in the project from beginning to end. Yesterday, I was doing a punch list for a new police station in Carver, Massachusetts. That's where I was yesterday. I was doing the punch list, and I was the one that designed the facility. This is not the level of service you're going to find from other firms, not at that level of expertise. We are hands-on. We know how to listen and carefully craft a solution that's right for our clients. And we can say with confidence that we have more current police facility design experience than any other architectural firm in New England. We're proud of that. We build that reputation just one project at a time. You might be familiar with some of the projects that we've completed. In Connecticut, this is just the work that we've done through Jakunski Humes Architects. So this board shows you 24 years of doing police facility design, and this is where the clients in Connecticut are going to find their services for design. Down in the Fairfield County, as you can see, we're active, very active in Fairfield County. We have Stanford that you just saw a picture of. Darien was an addition renovation. New Canaan, we have worked at your police station for renovations. Wilton, we're doing a study for Wilton. Weston, we just completed Weston's renovations, and to Weston PD, we also did Weston EMS. Reading was an addition to the Reading facility. Milford was a study to set the needs for Milford's, hopefully to get a new facility. Trumbull, we've done a couple projects at Trumbull. The recent project that was just completed last year was renovations to their detention cells, locker rooms, and improving their firing range back to a serviceable firearms training range after it sat vacant for 12 years because of contamination. We went in and got it active again. Newtown, you see on the patch on Newtown, we did the programming for Newtown. So we were responsible for the needs, space needs assessment. Bethel was constructed just recently, and it's new construction. The patch to the left of that is Western Connecticut State University, where we have done 3 university projects for the state of Connecticut. Western Connecticut, Central Connecticut, Eastern Connecticut, all university projects. And Danbury was a 75,000 square foot new construction. Brookfield is planning, and it's in the planning stages of Brookfield. So we can go on and on. This is just what we're showing in Connecticut, but we work also in Massachusetts. So we can step over the border, and Carver is over Cranberry Town, over near Plymouth. And that's where I was yesterday. We've been as far east as Chatham, as far west as Great Barrington, and every place in between. So this is, again, only work through Jakunski Humes Architects. This is only work. I'm not going back any further than just showing you what we've done in-house with our staff. So with the staff we have, they've worked on, dozens of these. So not only I have experience, but the people drawing the details of the project have worked on multiple projects. And that's what we pride ourselves on. If you've been to Stanford, this is the lobby in Stanford as you walk into the facility. I could just go on and on about little details that make this right and make it safe, make it secure. This is the public experience when you walk in to Stanford. We want to make these facilities not bunkers, but we want to make them inviting for the public. We want to make them transparent. No longer do we have that mentality of us against them, but community policing has tried to bring the community into these facilities. This is the public meeting room where they have police commission meetings in Stanford. So they actively have a police commission that faces out to the street and is transparent to the community. And they use this for community events too, where they can invite the community in. They also have within the department other training rooms and training classrooms, but this one is set aside for any public interaction or public use. This happens to be up on the 3rd floor. This is the chief's office, conference rooms where they can get the entire administrative staff together in one location. The technology is really invisible to you in the picture, but it's really throughout the entire facility on how they can communicate. Certainly not a picture of New Canaan's locker room here. I know that the lockers are a big part of satisfying patrol needs. So this is how we've satisfied it in a way that's inviting, clean, easy to maintain, gives the personnel the size locker that they desire. And it's gone a long way for morale in that department because they were coming from a facility that looked similar to some of the conditions that you see in New Canaan. I put this in because we did do structured parking in Stanford, but the way we did it in Stanford is this is a garage that also houses maintenance on the right. It has access to sally ports, 2 sally port bays to the left. It has a drive-through condition. And you can see that at the end, this door does go down. So they can enclose all of this. This is a rapid acting door. But this parking deck is 1 deck below grade. This is the main level, which gives you access into the garage and sally ports and maintenance. But then you have 2 decks above this. So it's a total of 4 decks for parking. It does reduce the footprint needs on the site. It does give them safety and security. And this was designed for both fleet vehicles and staff vehicles. So we have both staff and fleet. But the way we designed this is the building starts at the sally port and goes to the left. This structured parking is a separate facility, separate structure that's, you know, built and constructed right next to the police department building. So what we have is, this is the deck below. So right below all of this that you're seeing right here, right below is this deck. This is the one deck below grade. So what this is given them, again, this is a structured parking deck, parking garage built next to the police facility. And we've allowed overhead door bays going from the parking garage into the building. So the reason that we have all these overhead doors down here is they have a lot of specialty vehicles. They need to get in controlled spaces. Controlled being heated and cooled spaces. So what's behind those doors would be evidence, bulk evidence and evidence vehicles. All of their bomb squad vehicles are behind those doors. All their specialty vehicles that they need for robotics are behind those doors. But what they have in non-conditioned space would be investigative vehicles on this floor. And this, from this deck, it gives them direct access out for response out into the city. And they don't have to go through the deck that's above. They have their own access.
Right, what's the square footage and the number of sworn officers and the costs for that building?
Total cost, including the garage, was 43 million. It's 100,000 square feet for the building and another 100,000 square feet for the garage. And this was all at 43. And it included some site development. We had to take a historic building off the site to make way for this structure.
And how many sworn officers do they have?
300 and some, about 350.
Brian, as you, I know there are a gazillion variables to underground parking, but as you look at the space, and if you were to take a wild guesstimate as to the number of square feet per vehicle for underground parking, what would you guess it would be?
Per vehicle?
Yeah.
About 500 or 600 square feet per vehicle.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
This range that you see is in the lower level of Stanford PD. And kind of the interesting design feature about this is you see these white panels over here. These are double doors. These double doors exit out to the garage. So what happens is you could open this door, you can drive large objects, you could drive a vehicle. You could drive a vehicle right into this range area, and they use it for tactical planning. So if they wanted to bring a car in and use it for real life situations, they could do tactical planning and tactical training around large objects and then just get it back out through to the garage again. They've elected here not to go with the tracks, but they wanted static targets, and then they move. Instead of the target moving, they move. They move forward if they want to get closer to the targets, they move back if they want to do certification. So this is 8 lanes that they could do 8 personnel at a time. But we have experience doing ranges. As I said, we just brought Trumbull's back to life after quite a few years. Smaller facility just completed. This one happens to be in Massachusetts. But again, trying to bring in natural light, trying to make it inviting. All of our facilities have the technology for dispatching and all of the requirements for dispatching 911, surveillance. Detention cells now, we have not, 25 years, I have never had an accident in any of our cells. They're designed for suicide prevention. They have all of the latest features, and they meet all the criteria for statutes, for detention. One of the things in our facilities that departments really like is the way we go about booking. Instead of a cage configuration, we construct individual booking rooms. So here's a booking room to the right and a booking room to the left. You do all of your mug shots within that booking room. The back sides of these doors are gray. So you have the gray background. They take the mug shots. You can pass things back and forth for signatures. The staff would be on the other side of this glass while the person is in here being through the booking process. And it gives the officers safety and security. And if you're doing multiple bookings, these two booking rooms don't have any sight and sound connections. So there's no visual between if you're booking two. It's something that has really replaced the old bullpen concept and made it much safer for the officers. Here's a locker room where we have double door lockers. So these are even wider than Stanford's, and storage below. This is really something that departments are clamoring for. A design such as this, easy to clean, tile floors, easy to maintain. The one thing that we do pride ourselves also is repeat clients. I am the marketing department. In essence, I have to make sure that we satisfy the needs of all of our clients. And once we get a client, since 2005, we've been in Dennis, Massachusetts, doing a number of projects. It all started with the police headquarters, and now we're doing a senior center. It just is a relationship that we have had for 15 years. Windsor Locks, we're currently looking not just at their police headquarters, but then we've been asked to look at their fire headquarters, EMS headquarters, and even the senior center, because it all started with us doing the police headquarters. Board of Finance right now is looking to fund the headquarters for police and EMS in this year's fiscal budget. And we're no stranger to New Canaan. I feel I've been interviewing for this for about 15 years myself. 2006, we have started work in New Canaan. We've been down there even before the chief was the chief. So we've done interior renovations. We did a garage addition. We did roof repairs. We did boiler replacement. We did the EMS headquarters right next door to the PD. We've looked at siting studies for the police department, and we've also been asked to update a 2006 space needs assessment, and we've updated it to 2018. The reason that I was always interested in renovating your existing building really came down to your existing square footage was at 27.4, and your proposed square footage was 24.5. So I've always looked at these numbers saying, the building's big enough. But I think we needed to look a little bit past that, because to make the 24.5 work, there were some things we could not accommodate. And I've been clear about that. It's still trying to get 24.5 into a 27.4 building, but I can't make it all work, such as the community meeting police training classroom at 809 square feet. The proposed is 1,100 square feet. Well, that 809 square feet is about the biggest I can make it. So I can't go down this list and say I can do everything that's proposed because of existing construction, because of existing walls, because of limitations. I could, in a new facility, there's no reason that I need to build a building at 27.4. I could build a building at 24.5 and give you everything on the list that's on this list. This 24.5 was a larger number when we were talking about a firing range, but in this space needs, we're talking about a simulation indoor firearms simulation area of 600 square feet. That's a video simulation. That's not a live fire range, but it's a simulation range that doesn't need certification length. I could do it within a 30 by 30 room instead of a long range. So this is our discussion point since 2018. The building, while you have square footage there, it's an older building. It needs work. It needs a lot of things to happen, but it also needs to function as a police station while the renovations take place, which creates its own concerns. I just completed Westboro, Massachusetts PD, and I moved them out of the building for 2 years. They leased space for 2 years. And not only did they have to lease space, they had to utilize Southborough for all prisoner processing and detention for 2 years. And that was a neighboring town's agreement that they would take on Westboro's caseload for 2 years. Now, there was a dollar amount to that, and I can share with you how they did it and what it cost. But that was the best solution because they needed to maintain their downtown site. They did not have another site that was available. And the site that we renovated just happens to be their former high school. So we took a former high school and we turned it into a new modern police station. And its facility, I'd love to have you go see if you're thinking about renovation. But instead of them eating dust for 2 years, they had to move out and go into temporary quarters for 2 years and then move back. They have moved back. They love the facility. It's all seeming to be worthwhile for them, but it wasn't convenient. If I was able to build something new, you'd avoid all of the cost and difficulty of doing what they did, and you can get everything that you're asking for on this list.
Brian, if you were, again, I know there's 100 variables, but we had played around with a temporary police headquarter estimate in terms of a cost and guesstimated it might be in the 1.5 million range. I mean, is that way low or way high, or is that, you know, I know there's so many variables that it's almost impossible to say, but is the 1.5 million, would it be even in the ballpark, or are we completely off base?
Well, Westboro spent about $160,000 a month for 2 years. So what's 160,000? I'll do some quick math. 160 times 24, 3.8.
3.8.
You're off by about 100%, Stuart.
Okay, thank you.
I'd just like to note that you had 20 minutes. So if you could start to wrap it up, so we have a little bit of time for Q&A.
Happy to.
Brian, could you address what the minimum footprint needs are for a new building?
I think if you're looking at new construction, if you're looking at a site, I would say 2.5 acres is a good number. To look at buildable area, I need buildable area is what I need. And if I was to build a facility, I would recommend that you only look to build it 2 stories. You're going to find that I can't take the 24,000 square feet and split it in half and go 12,000 square feet of floor either. Because what happens is a lot of these spaces need ground level access. So what happens is you might have 2/3 of this being on the main floor and only 1/3 of it being able to go up. And I would say up is better than down. So if you go with a 24,000 square foot facility and you try to spread it out over 3 floors, you really start to break down your department as far as functioning and efficiency. And as I said, some things have to be main floor. All of your prisoner processing is main floor. All of your public areas is main floor. All of your evidence wants to be main floor. So this kind of dictates how these should be put together. So I think 2.5 acres is good, but that doesn't mean another site might not be available that we could make it work. I think trying to go more than 2 stories will stratify the department. That's not a positive move. But I think trying to put parking under is an option for some site that may reduce that 2.5 acres down to 1.5 acres. Or we have Ansonia right now, which is going on 1 acre, and they're 24,000 square feet. But they're going on 1 acre because the building is 24,000 square feet, and they're using adjacent parking, which is city-owned parking lot.
Brian, you are surely aware of our current site where it's on a slope, a downward slope. So you actually have ground level in the back and a floor down from ground level in the front.
Yeah. Yes.
So that gives you more options.
Well, you want to have a comfort factor on what are your safeguards? What are you going to guarantee? How can you guarantee that it's going to go well for you? IACP says experience, experience, experience. Gain experience in doing these projects. It's what I've done for 30 years. It's going to prove to be a benefit to you because every project I might tweak or learn or express something to you that you never had thought about, but use the experience you have with us to get you what you need, listen to what you need. And I can't afford, because this is my business, I can't afford to have an unsatisfied client. I hope I've treated New Canaan that way in the past. I'm not just saying this. You can look back and say, yeah, he was the one that was here. He did follow us through the project. I'm still doing it the same way today. So I can stop sharing and start answering any questions.
Other questions for Brian?
Yeah, Brian, I had Penny Rash, and I had a couple of questions. One, when you work with your team, what specialties do you bring, and what specialties do we have to hire in addition to you?
We are architectural. We have engineers that we like to work with for mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection. We have a number of them that we could utilize. We're not saying it's just one, but I find that the best engineers that are out there are working for themselves.
Okay, and then what about like information technology and IT? Do you have to hire somebody else to do that?
We do.
And if so, how well integrated does that end up being?
We do the integrated technology in-house. We do all of the other engineering is out of house. But we have the expertise in the IT. We don't do AV. Audiovisual would be typically the owner's consultant for AV, but we do all the access control, cameras, cell check devices. We do all that in-house.
So you design the dispatch. We don't have to have a separate expert to do that.
Hey,
we work with your radio vendor.
We use Norcom CT there.
Yeah, we've worked with them. We had to work with them in Weston. They know us quite a bit.
Are there any other criteria? Can you talk about the criteria, in your perfect world for how you cite a police department?
Yes, good question. If I'm looking at a site, buildable area is one, but also location in town is something that we try to put it on a main thoroughfare or a main street, something that's identifiable for the public. We try to avoid residential areas. I know in Bethel, we put it right next to an educational facility. And in Bethel, that was a benefit to put it next to schools. We also look to get 2 ways on and off the site. So that's another IACP recommendation, that we have 2 means of egress, 2 means of access on and off the site. So we'll look at that too. And that's just for response time. And if there happens to be something blocking one entrance or exit, that doesn't impact police services to the community. So 2 means of egress and access would be another thing that we would consider.
Brian, I know you're familiar with our existing building. Again, I know there's a lot of variables. The existing building I have a personal sentiment that says, you know, to your earlier point, we just need to eliminate the predefined constraints of the existing building. On the other hand, if there was a motion within the town, a public opinion that said that the facade could never leave, would it even be possible to maintain the facade, or is that would the cost be so exorbitant that it would be unrealistic to keep it?
No, I think it would be realistic, but I don't think it. I think it's realistic, but it would be at a cost that would be at or exceed new construction.
Right. Okay.
It can be done. It's not something that we can't do. There would be a cost to doing it, though.
Right. And with
so,
that,
in your work with Duquesne, have you ever looked at, you know, building a building that would sort of replicate the current one, but as new? So maybe you're not maintaining the facade, but you're reproducing it
on its current site.
On its current site.
I still think you're going to be, well, then you're at the cost of new construction plus having to relocate the existing police department. So you've added another cost factor to that over another site that may be appropriate.
But if the town wanted it there, could you do it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and we would come up with an accurate cost to do that.
Brian, one other idea which has been kicked around would be, you know, as you remember, that was an old high school and the back part was an old gymnasium, is doing a hybrid like we did on our town hall, where you save the front half of the building and take off the back and therefore put the things you need in the new back part.
Absolutely. And that's a possibility too.
How feasible is it to do that with leaving the police operations in the front of the building, though? Would you be able to do that on that constrained site, to have the police station operate out of the front while building in the back?
I can't say it's not possible. Darien, if you saw what we did in Darien, they were eating dust for quite a few months in Darien. They did not leave the site, and we had to put them in trailers on the site. So we were moving them in and out of trailers. We actually moved their entire dispatch center into a bullet-resistant trailer and kept them on site during the entire construction process. You have to understand, it's not just the police that have to operate, but it's the public's access to service that you also have to accommodate. So if it was just a police department and police officers getting in and out of the building, you know, that's a little easier to understand. But when you have to consider anybody from the public and accessibility having to be maintained for public services 24/7, there's no downtime for that. So that becomes the bigger challenge on how you're going to get public services at that location. Now that's what we had to do in the trailer for Darien. They stayed on site, but public access to services was to a trailer. It was not to a building.
Brian, have you ever looked at like where we could recite the police functions in New Canaan? Because we do have some swing space in a number of places. We have uses for the center school lot, but you might be able to use part of that for trailers and leave the current site so police, you could just work on that. Have you analyzed that?
I have, because it's going to be the same for the other projects we've done. You're going to split your PD into three components. You're going to send prisoner processing and detention off-site to another location. You're going to send that, and typically what that is a neighboring town would take that on, like Westboro did. It sent all their prisoner processing and detention to Southborough. So that's one component. The second component would be, what are you going to do with your personnel? So that's administrative staff, patrol staff. So that's going to be another segment that goes somewhere. And then your third component is dispatch. Where's dispatch going to go? And it doesn't always have to go with the administrative and personnel. But you have three components, and they could all go in three different directions. That's what Westboro did for 2 years. Their dispatch went to the fire station. Their staff went to lease space, and their prisoner processing and detention went to Southborough. So New Canaan's going to have to look at the same 3 components. And how do we satisfy that on a temporary basis? Now, the lease space was something that they had to fit out too. You're not going to just find an office with lease space within New Canaan that's going to say, perfect, it's everything we need. You're going to have to outfit that for lockers, for showers, for patrol needs, wherever you go. Not only did Westboro have to renovate the lease space, they had to turn it back to original conditions when they left. So they had to take everything that they put in, they had to take it all out. So those are the same components you'd have in New Canaan. We could talk it through, see what each one of those 3 components are.
Not like moving to town hall, guys, is it?
Brian, I know some PDs have actually used trailers for their administrative space.
Yep.
and patrol space, and put dispatch in a separate place as well. So you don't necessarily have to have a building. You can use portable buildings.
Darien, we use trailers. In Darien, we use trailers. Yep. Now, Darien did not use trailers for their prisoner processing and detention. That went to neighboring town.
Okay. About just, I don't want to take all the time. How many square feet do you end up needing approximately for the personnel?
Out of the 24,000, you're probably less than half. So if you could find about 10,000 square feet of lease space, that has to be a building that's within your town limits, obviously. And that's where it's going to provide public access to. So public would be allowed to go there 24/7 to wherever that lease space is. They don't necessarily go to dispatch.
Hey, Joe, we have to move on.
Right. Well, I'm under a tight times constraint here too. I've got to be off by 10:30. Just
yeah. To be fair, then we'd have to ask Brian. Yep. Step off.
Yep. I'm in the office. If you want to call back at the anytime today, I'll be in the office.
Thank you very much, Brian. I think I will be giving you a call today, Bill Walbert.
Very good. Very good.
Thank you, Brian.
Joe has my contact information, and good luck. Hope to hear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'll let Castle Booze in now. And I have a participant who's signed in under an iPhone. Who is that?
Is that me?
No, that's you talking, Paul. I changed you over.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
you did come.
This is Amy. I'm on an iPhone. Do you have me?
Fantastic.
Well?
I kept texting you. You kept chatting with you. You didn't come back. I was ready to get rid of you, but I'm glad I didn't.
Well,
okay.
Tiger, don't do that to me, man. No,
I'm glad I didn't. All right, cool.
I'm going to stay on no video, though, okay? But I'm on.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm just going to rename you so everybody knows who you are.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Tiger.
Yep. Okay, we have Castle Booze. Thank you guys for waiting.
Thank you for having us.
Hi, Chuck. Through? Yeah, we can hear you. My name is Bill Walbert. I'm the co-chair of the police committee. I don't think we've met. Nice to meet you. On our Zoom call today, we have members of our police building committee, and which include myself, Jim Bell, Amy Murphy-Carroll, Paul Foley, Penny Ration, Paul Tully. Also as an advisor to this committee is Stuart Salamini, who's done an amazing job for us over the years and coming up with more things. Kevin Moynihan, of course, our first selectman, and Tiger Mann, Joe Zagorensky, and John D. Federico, and Leon, our police chief. I think I got everyone. As well as it's a public meeting, obviously, so members of the press as well.
Understood. Shall we begin?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'm Chuck Booze, Castle Booze Associates. Thank you for having us. Online with me is Todd Costa. He heads up our public safety design studio and is our resident expert in all things public safety. And next to me is Eric Rossi, who's a senior landscape architect with Castle Booze. Castle Booze has had in-house landscape architecture for about 25 years. With that, Todd will begin presenting some relevant experience for your consideration. Todd?
Thank you, Chuck. So just a brief introduction of myself. I've been with Castle Booze for now 21 years. Actually, this would be my 22nd year. I come from about 3 generations of law enforcement. My grandfather, father, and my brother were all police officers in the town I grew up with. Made it very difficult to do anything incorrect or outside the law, if you would. So KBA, like Chuck said, has been doing this for over 50 years. It's just a brief experience or overview of our experience in the communities that we've touched through those years. Just some areas that are a little bit closer to you folks in New Canaan. I believe some of the people have visited the recently completed Newtown Police Department, which was a existing building that was renovated to be their police station. Bottom right hand of your screen here is the exterior area. Upper right hand is the meeting training room. Upper left is the entry lobby where you can interact with the communications or dispatch, as well as the records department. And the lower left is actually the kind of ante room or pre-room, prep room, if you would, for roll call. That island in the middle is actually set for duty bags for the officers, as well as you can see the charging stations. A little bit more on Newtown, just some of the areas to give some of the officers some comfort, which is their break room that you see going across the bottom of your screen, or their break area to be able to make a quick meal, as well as the upper left-hand corner. And their locker room on the upper right-hand corner, you can kind of see the lockers to the side, but we can get into some more of the specialty details that we've devised over the years there. Another building that's recently completed and occupied is the Windsor Police Department. You can see the exterior images on the left-hand side of the screen here. The training room on the on the right-hand side of the screen is the exterior images. On the left-hand 2 images, the bottom one is the lobby, top one is the community room there. Nearing the end of construction for us, it's about 4 months away from being completed, is the Beverly Police Station in Beverly, Massachusetts. A little bit more of an urban setting and a little bit different style, as you can see here. But we don't have any completed photos of this yet. The lobby being the main greeting spot in the upper left-hand corner, their training room in the upper right, and the exterior approach, if you would. A few things to note here: we were able to actually take advantage of some topography to help with the fortification, the protection of the exterior building. So you can see there's ramps and stairs to get up to the front door. That helps protect from vehicle approach, as well as the use of material here.
Todd, how big is that building?
This building it started out at about 32,000 square feet, and I think it's just south of that at 28, 26. The mayor in the community in Beverly was very involved. And actually we went with a collective group, room by room, and right-sized those rooms for the department and for the city for current day, as well as some future growth. You can see here, these are actually all computer-generated images. So about 10 years ago, actually better than 10 years, a little over 10 years, KBA converted over to utilizing what's called building information modeling. The software that we utilize is more specifically known as Revit, but from day one, when we start laying blocks out of spaces, we actually start building that building in the computer. So we can go through and we can actually walk the department through the building very early on, can kind of get a rudimentary idea of how things are coming together, how operations are flowing, so that if we need to make any adjustments early in programming, that, you know, we can pull, say, you know, locker rooms out of this location and put them in that location, because it will better service the flow of the department and the way, you know, for example, in your situation, the way New Canaan's police department wants to operate and flow on a daily basis.
Is that deck parking behind there? And what's the square footage?
That deck parking is actually for the business that's actually directly behind this. So this is a much more urban site. They are, all their parking is within their site. That deck parking services the business building. It actually was a former shoe manufacturing location in Beverly. So they were carved out a small, you know, basically street side parking. So they don't have any elevated parking in this building, but this building is scheduled to be a net zero building. It's just a unique fact. They use are using geothermal heating to heat this building, as well as somewhere close to 95% of that roof is going to get covered in solar panel, and 95% of the secure parking area is going to get covered in solar panel as well. Provides a canopy to protect the cruisers from snowfall, so you don't have to clean the cruisers off when they need to be sent out from the station or start or end of shift, as well as helps reduce the heat load on the cruisers as well.
Todd, what's the minimum footprint you need for a new building?
It depends upon the size of the department. We go through a very extensive questionnaire right in the beginning to kind of get an understanding of the community's calls for services, their planned full population growth, as well as the number of sworn officers, number of calls, number of arrests. We have a algorithm, if you would. I've yet, even though I've got a math minor, I've yet to be able to figure out how that works with all those numbers, but it's all data gets put in, and we get a recommended, and then we can recommended future growth for the department. And then we sit with the department and we go through space by space and go over how much in what areas that they want to plan for future growth.
Is that building 2 levels or 3 levels?
That is actually 3 levels. So that the first floor is the main entry level, is in the upper, the lower corner, that kind of window that wraps the corner, that's their community training room. They have dispatch on the main level, as well as the patrol operations. Second level is their investigations. Excuse me, the main level also has the detention block that's to the back, the more solid area. Second level has their locker rooms, as well as the investigations. Excuse me, not investigations. That's some of their patrol command staff and specialties is on the second level. Third level has the administration, investigations, and the evidence storage.
Was that a compromise that they had to go to 3 levels because of the footprint?
Yeah, because of the buildable area that was on the site, they did need to squeeze the building and bring it up a little bit more. And they are also within a floodplain. So one of the reasons the building is elevated is to get it out of the 100-year floodplain as well. Directly behind what would be the camera is actually a small inlet of the bay.
Oh.
Excuse me. Some more projects that are kind of nearing completion for us. Quincy, Massachusetts, a very large facility, but it's not just police. It's their police department. It's their fire administration. It is their emergency management are all located within this building, as well as centralized communications. That's the upper right-hand corner. the upper left-hand corner, that's actually the community of Leominster, or city of Leominster in Massachusetts. Unique one there is the again, a floodplain issue. 100-year flood actually would completely occupy the whole lower level, if you would. So this building, although it looks like it's on street level, is actually built completely on stilts, and they have parking, protected parking below this building. And if this was basically being designed so that if the floodplain process, if the city decided to go through the floodplain process, they could actually infill that bottom area if they could get this building out of the floodplain. The bottom image that goes across half the screen here, that is the city of Brockton's new public safety facility. So that is a combined police, fire, emergency management, city IT. I think that's everything that's in that building. And that is a very tight site. So this one here, you can kind of see it. It's off to the left-hand side here. Does have plans for an elevated parking structure. It will be somewhere, we've got an engineer on board with us, but it's going to be somewhere between 2 to 3 levels. I'll also note that the Quincy image, even though you can't see it, off to the left-hand side of the screen here is also a parking structure that enters from grade on both sides. The intent behind that is, again, assisting with the flow of the department. Personal vehicles enter in on the lower level, which is actually a little bit elevated to accommodate some things like their SWAT vehicle. That's more commonly known by them as the Bearcat, as well as the upper deck is all for the police patrol vehicles.
Todd, let me jump in. We generally show a flyby or fly around of our buildings, but it becomes very jumpy on Zoom. So I did send you a link for YouTube that you can watch a fly around, and you can see all 4 sides of the Quincy project, including the parking deck, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
It also it doesn't really, to Chuck's point there, it doesn't really look like a parking structure because, again, taking advantage of a solar canopy, the entire upper deck of the parking structure is going to be covered in photovoltaic panels, solar panels, to help generate energy for the city. But it also acts as a dual purpose, if you would, because it's going to protect the cruisers, the patrol vehicles, from inclement weather. So it'll keep the snow off the cruisers, making them easier and faster to deploy when they're back at the station.
Todd and Chuck, in Massachusetts, do towns and cities build their own police departments with no aid from the state?
Yes. Majority of them are. There is one community that right now is getting some state aid, and that's the city of Lawrence, because they had their recent natural gas accident where there was a surge going through the pipelines, and it caused a lot of damage throughout the city, and they didn't have the proper facilities to respond. So as I mentioned earlier, I did not mention earlier, I am a member of IACP. I actually also sit on the Technology and Communications Committee for IACP. Part of that is to just stay abreast of the latest technologies and latest trends that are happening in the law enforcement industry. Ultimately, we're seeing things like unmanned aerial vehicles, or drones, more commonly known, the body cameras, how that's impacting the industry. But also one of the latest things, and it's kind of that city map that you see in the background, things like smart cities are starting to come into play, and it's starting to become discussions within the committee that I sit on. That is, so to kind of take a brief moment to explain a smart city, that starts to link your cruisers, your buses, your fire apparatus, ambulances, to intersections. Then the way that helps is often to reduce risk for the community, for the responding police officer or fire engine, is as they're approaching an intersection, there's a belief that the data from intersection cameras can actually be sent into the cruiser, and using information artificial information, AI, it can sense movement from other directions, so that the officer, as he approaches, or the secondary officer as they're approaching the intersection, knows or has identified potential risks that may be there to help avoid accidents and help loss of assets for the department. Ultimately, what that all means is that your department server room, your department, we call it a head end room, is a critical point of information for the community. So the reason why we show this is something that, you know, we stay actively involved in, not only with our consultants that we bring on board, our electrical engineer, mechanical engineers, technology engineers, if they are not being done by the electrical, but we stay actively involved in the planning right with the contractor. You'll see, you know, things like demarc points for your access control, redundant heating and cooling systems, so that if one of the units goes down, the other 2 or 3, depending upon the size of the room, can properly support the room and make it so that you don't overheat the equipment and have loss of investment from your city or your community. As well as things like battery backup units. This unit, you cannot lose this room, because this controls the access control into the station. So there's a battery backup unit that's installed within this area as well, to hold basically the infrastructure of the building and then the main brains of the building online while the generator comes up.
Thank you, Todd. I appreciate that very much. I hope the committee will agree that we have substantial, relevant, and recent experience to help New Canaan further this project along. That said, a recently completed study in Richfield, Connecticut, makes us, I think, uniquely qualified to be your architect of choice. Let me quickly explain that. In the fall of 2019, we were hired to study Richfield's space needs for a new central firehouse, an expanded or new police station, and a combined facility, both police and fire, in a single building. That study was completed, and we were, along with that, we were charged with studying 3 separate sites: one site for the new central firehouse, one site for the expanded police facility, and another site for the combined facility. We did concept plans for each site. We do this so we could establish a proper fit for the buildings, and also, and most importantly, by doing a concept and site fit, we can come up with a project budget that's realistic. That project was put on hold in response to COVID for about 6 months, but it started up again last fall. And it was presented to a combined meeting of the police and fire commissioners, the Board of Selectmen, and other town officials successfully. And that during that meeting, Richfield elected to go with a combined facility because it represented a substantial economy between building on one site instead of 2. However, they did feel that they wanted to look at an additional 2 sites for the combined facility. And but those sites that we looked at were different in character, and we had to, again, do a test fit building for each one of those sites. And the draft of that final study was, again, recently completed and will be presented to Richfield tomorrow via Zoom. Now, why did I tell you this story? Because I think it's very important, because you have the ability to go see or call up the Richfield's first selectman, Rudy Marconi, or his executive aide, Jake Muller, and hear firsthand their impression of how we performed on what I imagine is a very similar study that you will be expecting from us. It's freshly completed, and to the best of my knowledge, they're very happy with our service and performance. So I would recommend that you make that call to get firsthand knowledge of what our capabilities are.
Chuck, what's being recommended there? How big a building and what's the cost?
The building is about 65,000 square feet,
Wow.
but it's about half and half. So you know the building itself, and it will have a range, a full service range, and it has a parking deck, not substantial, but enough to keep the weather off the cruisers, and enough to facilitate site circulation, especially to the Sally Port, and of course separating the police from the fire side. There is a central connector with a lot of rooms that are mutually shared, and it was a substantial savings in taking that approach. But it requires a larger site.
Is the site in the center of Richfield?
It is not. It is not far from the center, but it's on a site that was a former manufacturing area. That those buildings were demolished, and the site was filled in with clean fill. And on that site, there's a building that was designed by Philip Johnson. So the first pass on that particular building, we did a contemporary design. However, a little bird whispered in my ear that Richfield would like a traditional building. And so we've come up with a traditional image for that facility. It changes the planning a little bit, but it will need to go to referendum. So we have to be sensitive to what the town really wants. Eric, you want to talk a little bit about?
Sure. As the landscape architect on the project, not only would I be responsible for design of the site once the site is selected, but I also for looking at all the various sites that you may be considering going forward for siting the new police station. We did this both locally, did it both in Newtown and in Ridgefield. Ridgefield, we looked at almost 8 sites.
Yes.
But we look at things such as the zoning, what the zoning is, what the setbacks are, what area we need, the topography. And we, most importantly, we go out there and actually look at the site, because GIS and all the mapping information we have that's available online nowadays might not show something that's right on the site. So we go out there and we look at everything. But my role is figuring out the parking, how the parking works, how the public areas work versus the patrol areas or the secure areas of the site. And also all the passive security measures that go around a new police station. You don't want vehicles getting very up close to the walls of the building. There's ways to do that and not make it look like a mistake. So we get involved in all that going forward, as well as siting the site, looking at all the individual sites to determine what's the best area for you. One thing we found out recently and on a lot of our projects is that the way that police operate nowadays, they've got all their cars out on patrol at any one time, so the actual station doesn't need to be in the center of town necessarily. So that could save money and save a lot of process time by moving a station out of downtown and into an area that's more available or where land is a little less expensive. So those are all the things we look at going forward for the site. And that's one of the reasons that I'm on this interview today, is that KBA just values that input and values the ability to look at things up front and talk about them as the design progresses to select the right site.
So you understand, because of the materials you'd been sent before the meeting, that we're approximately the 25,000 square foot building, approximately 78 cars. What would you guess a lot size, an acreage would be required for a new site?
So if that 25,000 square foot building goes on 2 levels, you're about 13,000 square feet for a footprint of a building, plus all the grading, everything you have to do outside the building. So that's about it's over 13,000 square feet, what you actually need. And then for the parking, you need about, for 78 spaces, you need about 25,000 square feet. On a perfect site that's flat, where you can bring the driveways in wherever you want, where you can configure the sally port where it needs to be and figure out the circulation, you'd need a minimum, a very minimum of 1 3/4 acres. You could double that or triple that on a site that's got topography, or where you don't have municipal water or sewer, or where you've got wetlands or other constraints on the site that would require us to kind of work around those. And then when you start working around those, you develop some inefficiencies in the parking layout and the site that you need more land. So between 1 3/4 and 3 acres.
Chuck, an important consideration is renovating the current building. As a former high school that's 80 years old, you looked at the building and you have in your mind a number that it requires to renovate that 27,000 square feet, which also has the cost of moving out for a year and a half or 2 years.
Right. There's if by chance you decided that it will go into that particular building, it's going to take a lot of work to bring it up to the various codes. And primarily, energy is a big challenge in that building, as well as perhaps we might have seismic issues as well. The building could house easily the administrative and functional portions of a police facility, but I would recommend something similar to what we did at Newtown, where we took the section of the building that requires a certain fire rating and a certain seismic rating, and that would be detention and prisoner processing, et cetera, as an addition. And that addition could be out of the rear of that building. And if you indeed take the cottage, we have a concept plan for a 2-deck parking garage back there. But it's a challenge, and one of the challenges is what do you do with the police while you're renovating the building? Well, if you take the cottage, rather than tearing it down, you could use that as a temporary police to house the administrative and functional part of the police facility. You could get some temporary trailers for locker rooms and toilet facilities and things like that, without spending an awful lot of money back there. Your detention and your prisoner processing would have to be directed to a neighboring town on a temporary basis. We've done that in the past any number of times, and it works. So that probably would result in a substantial savings as opposed to moving out and renovating a building just for a year and a half or 2 years to house a police facility. So the other problem that I see on that particular site is it's urban, and it's the laydown is going to be tough for a contractor, because there's not a lot of space there to actually build a building and let the existing building or the cottage section function as a police facility during construction. So it's not without its challenges, and if it has challenges, that means that the cost is going to go up. But anything is doable. And I know there was a thought about, well, what do we do if we just take everything down but the facades? I don't think the building would be that.
Did he freeze up?
Did Chuck freeze?
It appears he may have.
I think it could be done. We did a facade. There was a question. Oh, did we freeze?
Chuck froze for a few minutes. What?
Okay. Well, I was saying that we did a facade-ectomy at a portion of the Palace Theater in Waterbury when that project was renovated about 20 years ago. And it's not without its problems. I think today, a building of that particular size, you can easily digitize the entire facades of the three sides of the building that are worth saving, and replicate it in new construction that meets all the codes. It probably would be cheaper than to try to save what's there. That's one of the reasons why I sent down the flyby of Quincy. There's a situation where a town really wants a quality, essentially a 100-year building, and the quality of the use of granite, the use of cast stone for the traditional features that they want on that building. The roofs are going to be copper and slate, et cetera, et cetera. So it really is a 100-year building. So it can be done. So that's. Any other questions on the existing building?
The other, just to be sure that we all are also keenly aware that we also have an ambulance corps that responds to that site. So if there was a quote renovation going on, we would have to maintain that. There's also a daycare center and a senior living center, all shoulder to shoulder to that site.
We are aware of that. We are aware of that, and that just furthers the difficulty of working in that particular location. Now, can the building be used for something else? Absolutely, because it doesn't have to be. If it was, for instance, I heard that senior housing was battered around. It would certainly work for that. Now, I'm not sure how the area of the building is calculated, but the basement of the original building is not very usable at all. It may be good for storage or mechanical usage, but you can't really put a lot of functionality into that basement.
Questions?
Chuck, Penny Ration, good to see you again. So I was wondering, did you look at our other places that New Canaan owns that could be used for swing space, such as Irwin Park?
We did not look at any areas that could be used as swing space. No, ma'am.
Okay.
The swing space is probably a $2 million expense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's if we have to rent everything new, and depends upon the locker. But you'd want to study what New Canaan could offer in terms of how much we could bring that down. But it's definitely sizable.
Yes. But I'd just like to reiterate that we had what I regard as a very successful experience in Richfield, and I do hope you take advantage of speaking with the First Selectman's office there to at least get a first-hand response to the kind of service we're capable of providing.
What's that $65,000 facility going to cost them?
I'm sorry?
What's that 65,000 square foot facility going to cost them?
Well, it's they really don't want that number to get out at this particular point in time. So until it becomes official, the cost of the project will vary if it goes on. Each site will have a different cost associated with it.
Well, Stanford was a 100,000 square foot building for $43 million, including deck parking. So obviously it's a $30 million project or something. So,
so if we were to just talk at 30,000 square feet, I'm sorry, 30,000. If we were just to talk about in general cost of new construction for a brand new building on let's say I gave you a 2.5 acre lot and said, okay, there's a 2.5 acre lot. Let's build a brand new building. What might we expect it to cost us on a square foot basis?
Todd, you want to handle that?
It's a little bit more challenging for me to be able to speak towards Connecticut numbers without talking to my estimator first, foremost. But But we're seeing from Massachusetts projects, which we have a few more of those obviously on the boards, anywhere between $600 to $700 a square foot. And I use those numbers, and I want to preference it. That's not just construction numbers. One thing that we pride ourselves on is a total project budget or a total project cost. We want to take into and make you aware of considerations of things like utility back charges or moving costs or potential legal fees. And then some of those we want to also, in equipping costs, equipping in these types of facilities is not inexpensive.
So it's Newtown built a 25,000 square foot facility, renovating a former building with an addition, and 1.7 million of that was acquisition costs for the property, including 20 acres. So Newtown you did, and they told us, the chief told us, I mean, you were spot on with your estimated cost of the facility.
Right.
Correct.
But I can't imagine we can build that facility in New Canaan for $15 million.
Well, the existing building had pretty good bones, and it came with a sprinkler system that they decided to replace. But the service and everything was there. We didn't have to do very much at all with the septic fields and things like that. So they had a lot of pluses going for it, and the site was not a terribly difficult site to design to their needs. So, and I also believe that, Todd, you might help me here, that the communications was not part of that project cost. It was funded separately.
Correct.
And that was, I believe, $500,000 or more. So it's tough to compare apples to apples. If you're going to build a new building, then you've got to start from the ground up. In this case, we saved the foundation. We saved the majority of exterior walls. Of course, the roof was changed, but the structure wasn't altered. There was an addition to it, but it wasn't a great size. So that, and Windsor was the same way. The town of Windsor, that we went into a half of a large abandoned warehouse. One half is for Public Works Department, and the other half is the police station. And there was a lot of pluses there too. So when you compare square foot costs, the site has a lot to do with it. What's included has a lot to do with it. And we would rather try to deal in project costs rather than construction costs, because it all adds up.
Just as another note, because I know there is the discussion of potentially an indoor range or some kind of range as part of the project. I do want to also make you aware that we're well versed in that. The not that you could see it, but the Quincy model is planning for a 10-lane indoor range. We just completed Bourne Police Station, which has a 4-lane indoor range, 4 or 5, and as well as Needham is that. And we've developed good relationships with some of the range vendors so that we get them involved early to make sure that it's, the size of the range is designed correctly for the police department's qualification requirements and things of that nature. But a big part of that is also the ventilation requirements, so that way you have a safe, healthy range for the life of the range and the life of the building, so that we make sure we get the right parties involved early on and assist with getting those things planned appropriately.
Todd, how many of your PD projects don't have ranges? Are we making a mistake by not including a range?
Quite a few of them do not. A lot of them are starting to incorporate it because land is becoming a premium. I was actually just down in New Britain yesterday touring for, I can't even remember the number of times that we've gone through there, but the current command staff said one of their biggest regrets was not including an indoor range because they lost access to their qualification range. So now they're seeking other community locations to go and qualify, basically, which they have to do a couple of times a year, I believe.
Is Richfield going to have a range?
Ridgefield right now is planning on a range with their plans.
And yes. Todd, do you know, how many lanes that would be and whether it's interior or exterior to the building?
Theirs right now is, I believe, either 4 or 5 lanes. It is interior. And they're also planning on a simulation room as well, which is another training function, but unfortunately, the departments can't qualify on or get certified on simulation. They have to live fire. But the simulation rooms are beneficial as well. It's another training aspect to enter into conversations on, because not only can they be used for the department, but we've worked with a few departments that actually utilize them as a PR, public relations entity. If one community we were working with was actually using it, if they got complaints of excessive use of force, they were actually bringing members of public in and putting them into the same scenarios that the officer was being forced to put into, and making the public go through those instances. And the neat part of the programming is it allows them allows the operator to change the scenario based on the interaction. So they can actually escalate the computer portion on the individual so that they can kind of feel the same instances that the officers are going through.
Do you see many PD around Massachusetts or Connecticut, Rhode Island sharing ranges?
A lot of to answer that question kind of just a little bit differently, but a lot of the communities that we are putting the ranges into, there is a plan on the Beverly project I shared with you to do an outdoor building that's a range. There's a similar plan for Newtown. A lot of the communities that we're building these in are building them with a plan that they can actually lease them or rent them to their neighbors, because as you know, urban sprawl or you know, the properties in the more rural areas are being bought up, a lot of the ranges that are outdoor are starting to go by the wayside or disappear because noise and things like that to the neighboring houses. A lot of them are coming indoor to the stations, and they're starting to rent to the neighboring communities. We've also heard in part of the discussions that by bringing the range into the station, the departments are predicting immense cost savings, operational cost savings, because they don't have to send their officers out for overtime. They're actually able to, you know, have 1 or 2 officers extra on a shift and bring 1 or 2 officers in for their training while they're on shift.
Can you share simulation rooms, or is that all too new technology to find out what people are doing? Like,
some of the communities are, so a lot of the communities that we work with, not only are they putting in simulation rooms, but they're putting in training rooms. Part of the training room is actually the right sizing the training room so that the department will get free seats. So they get an opportunity that if they bring in an outside vendor for training and the venue is large enough, and we're finding that that's between 40 to 70 seats in the classroom, that the city or the town will get X number of free seats. And it depends upon the program. It depends upon, you know, their negotiations, but they'll get anywhere between 2 to 3 free seats for a training class by having those venues. Similar thing can take place not only as for the range, where they can actually train neighboring communities, but they can also take part in part of the programs that are available from some of the vendors, if you would.
Foley, are you still with us, or we perhaps have to wrap this up?
I'm still on. Just in the car.
Amy had to drop off. She had a call at 10:30.
Well, I think we've covered it with Chuck and Todd and Eric, and we don't really have any more on the agenda. But do you want to have more questions for the Castle Boost folks?
I guess my only question would be, you've talked about some of the criteria that you like for citing a police station, the amount of acreage you need. What are the other, just real quickly, criteria that we should be considering as we're looking at this issue?
The big thing are things like city water and sewer, topography, the ground, whether you have wetland soils or you have ledge rock exposed, things like that are things we look at right up front. A lot of that information is available on GIS, both for your town. New Canaan has a GIS system, but also Westcog has a very good GIS system and much more accurate topography on their GIS system. So we look at all that. Those are the most important things: is topography, any site constraints such as wetlands or ledge or adjacencies. And the example of your existing town hall, the adjacency to the daycare would be an issue. So those are all things that we look at going forward.
A police station is a little bit different than, for instance, a central fire station where traffic considerations and response times are very important. The police facility can be located almost anywhere in town because the cruisers are out, and they get dispatched when they're on the road. So we don't have to worry as much about the traffic associated with comings and going at a police station.
Have you seen any adjacent towns sharing police stations?
Sharing a police station?
No, not that we've run into.
I thought that would be the answer. So.
During construction, we've seen towns reach agreements for detention facilities,
right,
and some other hardened facilities while things are under construction.
Right.
But we haven't seen individual towns sharing.
Although there's a trend on the emergency operations centers, that's becoming a shared type facility.
EOCs and communication centers, yes. Regional dispatches. Yep.
I mean, Wilton is also looking to do something with their PD, and I just, obviously it's sort of a tradition. People have their own PDs, so.
Can you talk just briefly about, adjacency to schools and where that is in terms of guidelines for placing police departments?
Well, it really depends on the community. So you can have a community where, like you got a fairly good grouping of schools down toward near the Merritt Parkway along, is that 15? Yeah. What is it?
South Avenue.
Avenue.
Yeah. Anyway, down South Avenue. I mean, the high school is there. The middle school is there, etc. You could say that it's nice to have a secure facility like a police station in that grouping because the response time to any circumstance in the school building would be relatively short. But on the other hand, there's a lot of characters that come and go in police stations, sex offenders, etc. And you don't want to put the kid in the candy store, so to speak. So it depends on community attitude, really. We see them located in many different spots.
And it'll depend from site to site. Any school has their 2 times a day where the traffic is horrendous. First thing for drop off and then for pickup. So it's a matter of looking at all those variables and seeing how the facility fits in. But as Chuck said, they do have folks getting released, and usually when they're getting released, they're not in the best of moods. So that's another concern.
Thank you.
So maybe a little less so in the town of New Canaan.
I want to thank you for considering Castle Booze, and I'll just close by saying that we're ready to go immediately. We have the staff. We have 3.5 offices in the immediate New England area, and we have a total of about 66 people. So in-house landscape architecture and interiors. And we are also equipped with a very talented marketing department should you need any public relations, website development, and things like that in behalf of your projects. We can help with all of that.
Chuck, how about construction costs? What are you seeing in New England as far as?
It's going up. The price of materials are going up. You know, you just follow the price of oil. If oil goes up 10%, you know, construction materials are going to go up. Labor's going up, but when a project such as this, most of our projects are managed now by construction managers, and if this becomes a reality, I would strongly recommend that you get a construction manager on board early, so that the pricing can be started in the schematic stage. If that doesn't happen, we would employ a professional construction estimator familiar with the prices in Connecticut to come up with an honest figure with the proper amount of contingency that you need to protect the number, depending, because there's probably a 6 to 8 month period where the project is in design and approval, and prices can vary during that period. But once the number is published, but once the number is put on a street, that's the number you got to live with.
and Eric and Todd, thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good luck, by the way.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Yeah, Mr. Walbert.
Yes, sir.
Why don't you wrap up the meeting? I think.
All right. Well, we've heard it all. And obviously, the next steps we have to decide at some point. Two things. One, obviously, which architect we're eventually going to go with, and but are we going to employ one or two? Potentially do some incremental analysis to give us some better numbers. You know, on one hand, I mean, we study these things to death as a town. We all know that. But on the other hand, making an important decision about siting hybrid or building new, you know, we have amazing professional experts here that we have working relationships with, and it just seems silly not to engage one or two to give us the data we need to make the best decision for the town. You guys kind of agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. So then the next question is, you know, between now and our next meeting, should we schedule some kind of a sub-meeting to decide that, or can that kind of a decision wait another month?
I'd rather move the agenda along here. I don't really want to wait another month for this. If we could have a subcommittee come together with some recommendations.
And then I would kind of agree with that another month seems like a long time since we're engaged. We have it in front of us. Life happens. You know, it seems like it's not a bad time now to get some better information so that we actually can act within the next few months. Jim, I cut you off there though.
No, I was just thinking that at this stage, we have to write the remit. What do we want them to do for us? Because I don't want to. We don't necessarily want to say that the one that we're going to use it to choose an architect. What I'm thinking right now is, do we really want two opinions right now, or just want help in where we are? It seemed to me from that presentation, those presentations, that Castle Booth didn't provide a lot of local knowledge to New Canaan, whereas Humes knows it pretty well. If you just want to get opinions, you can probably get it from him more quickly and less expensively, without even choosing an architect. But just you want to get professional advice quickly.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I haven't passed any judgment on the architects personally, only because you guys have worked with these guys a lot more than I have, and I didn't want to, you know, start anew with relationships that you guys already have. So I'd be comfortable with whatever architect the group decided on.
Well, I would.
You know, I think. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say I would select one or two, and I would draft up a list of deliverables that we'd like from them, and then have them see if we can't get that started, ASAP. Why not have that process begun immediately?
Yep. So then really what we need is that list of deliverables completed. And it seems to me, Stuart, Jim Bell, and myself can probably put that together, the three of us. Is that something you guys would agree with?
Good with me.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I'd be happy to work on it too.
Well, thank you, Penny. All right, so the four of us can put together that list of deliverables, and then maybe in 2 weeks, I'm getting a little rusty. Is that the special meeting or what have you? Get the group to agree with that, so that we can move forward and try to get that study done.
Just to refresh our memory, Joe, how much money was set aside for this early phase work?
I think we have 500,000 is what Kevin told us before. That's, I mean, not that we'd want to use that, but I think 500,000 has been allocated to this committee. Isn't that right?
Yes, that's the number I've heard, but I didn't understand. I don't know specifically. Is that money ready to spend? What's the story behind that money?
There's money ready to spend. The 500,000 was really for the overall complete architect services. So you can use a portion of it, obviously, but that is also some powder we have to keep dry to actually get the design finished.
Got it.
Well, we're going to have an appropriation of what, $7.5 million at least for the next fiscal year starting July. So there's.
Okay, good.
Well, that's going to be in the capital budget, right? It's not going to be in the.
Well, the 500 is in the capital budget too.
Yeah, right. Right. Okay.
So I think
Kevin, are you putting anything in the capital budget for the police department for this coming year, or is this going to, once we figure out what the plan is, are we going to have to go through a special appropriation process?
No, that's what I was just referring to, Penny. There's $7.5 million in the budget right now, capital budget for fiscal year 22, starting July 1st. I don't know why, perhaps the whole 15 million or more is not in that budget, because this is on the table to do as a project. And
right.
But I mean, the money's not going to be the issue. The question is how you want to spend it.
Right.
Okay.
Just a quick note on the money. Because the numbers, of course, seem to keep rising and rising and rising. If one was just to do a very quick math, $700 a square foot, 25,000 square feet, plus, let's just be conservative, $3 million temporary police headquarters for 2 years, you'd be in the 20 million range if you were to renovate the existing building. I didn't realize it was going to end up being that much, but anyway.
Well, it's going to be 15 to 20 probably under any scenario.
Well, the new building would be, you save your 3 million of temporary headquarters, that's all.
Right. And
you potentially are able to sell the existing building off for some value, whatever conservative number you want to apply to that. So if you're able to sell the existing building off even for 4 or 5 million, which I think is a very conservative number, you could take your $17 million of new construction and drop it down much less. Anyway, just ballpark numbers. It's 30,000 feet.
Yeah, well, I think, as when we create that list of deliverables, get one of the firms to react to that, and the numbers are presented, we'll then be able to create the path we want to take. And I think the numbers, Stuart, because I think you're absolutely right here, the numbers will become, somewhat clear if there's a piece of property that we can do it on. Build a new one.
All right. Why don't we do what we just talked about? Figure out what we're going to do in 2 weeks, and if we need a special meeting, call it. Otherwise, have a report at the following meeting. One of the two, depending on how much we get done.
Right. Right. No, that's very fair. You can always cancel a special meeting. So maybe we can schedule one for a special meeting in 2 weeks. And if we're not ready, we'll you know, we'll just cancel it, but it's easier to add it now than later. Is that fair?
That's fair. I agree with that.
Okay.
Thanks.
So
okay.
What time would you like the special meeting for? I don't have to post it for a couple of weeks, but.
So yeah, I was going to say, let's be careful on that. Once you have the special meeting and you post it, you can't, you can't change the agenda. So we might want to wait till a little bit later to post the agenda for it, but we can set aside some time.
Yeah, it'd be better for me if we do it on a Wednesday morning instead of a Thursday.
I actually was about to say the same thing, Jim. Next Thursday morning, I have some appointments that are impossible for me to move. So Wednesday would be preferable, personally.
Wednesday. So February 24th? That's 2 weeks.
Yep.
Well, yeah, that's fine. But let's not post it for a week or so until we see what's happening here.
Yep. Understood.
All right. Just to pencil that in. Okay. All right. Thank you,
guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was really helpful today. It was great to have the two architects, both very competent.
No, we're very, very blessed to have a situation where two architects have done the vast majority of police stations in our area, which makes makes finding information much easier, makes our professional decisions about architects much easier. It really is a good thing for us. All right, motion to adjourn.
Good.
Good. Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks all.